The UFC may be lacking star power, it seems lately, but its champions I believe are as entertaining as it gets, so I decided to rank them based on their entertainment value. The least entertaining fighter I'm gonna say is Magomed Ankalaev. And I have to make this clear, this isn't hate. I don't even hate Ankalaev. I picked him to win that first fight against Pereira. But I have to be honest, does he have the most entertaining style? Absolutely not. It's as effective as it gets, but genuinely, what's the most exciting moment from his UFC career? Knocking out Johnny Walker? Who hasn't knocked out Johnny Walker? I think everybody who lands on him can knock him out. I think if I landed a shot on his chin, I've got a chance to put him out. But apart from that, what's the most entertaining moment of his career? And it even affects your mentality as you go into an Ankalaev fight. The fact that most people will just predict either a 48-47 or 49-46 decision in most of his fights just proves that you don't think there's a chance for a finish most of the time. That matters in terms of the entertainment factor. And there are situations where a fighter who doesn't get finishes can still be entertaining, but you have to be insanely high output in that case. Ankalaev isn't that. He's very effective, but entertaining is not the word to describe his fighting style. Next, I have Merab Dvalishvili, and to be honest with you, Merab has actually grown on me. The fact that I think he's the second least entertaining champion in the UFC is actually a good thing. I think the UFC is in a very good position in terms of how entertaining their champions are, but they obviously don't do anything to promote them, so the star power isn't there like it should be. But Merab has done a great job in making his personality become a part of his fight style. When he's emoting on Umar in the 5th round, it makes that fight more entertaining. When he's treating O'Malley like his son in the first fight, it makes it entertaining. When he's carrying Henry Cejudo on his shoulders like it's nothing, it's entertaining. He has moments in his fights that I remember long after his fights are done. Do I wish he had more finishing potential? Absolutely I do. But he's probably got the greatest gas tank in UFC history, and to see a fighter perform in the 5th round exactly how he did in the 1st round is fascinating to watch. Next, I have Pantoja. Pantoja is insanely dominant and his grappling is great, but the guys ahead of him are just more my speed. I think people have come around on Pantoja. He didn't have a great reputation at first in terms of being entertaining, but I think that was just more so because people weren't too big on flyweight. But flyweight's making a comeback in terms of interest, and Pantoja is at the top of the mountain in that division. Once he gets the hold of your back, it feels like the fight is over. His chin allows him to keep coming forward. He's not avoiding a fight. It seems like he's going to rule this division for a while. From everything he said, it sounds like he has no interest in moving up to 135, and I'm okay with that. He can continue to dominate his division. Now, his style is better than people had originally given him credit for. It's just still not my ideal fighter in terms of entertainment. Like, it does feel like in his next fight, a lot of the fans do view somebody like Joshua Van to be the more entertaining fighter, and he will be the one with the crowd on his side, no matter where the fight takes place. Unless it's in Brazil, obviously. Usually the grapplers just aren't going to be more entertaining than the style of some of the other fighters ahead of him. Unless you're a grappler like Hamza, I'm usually going to lean towards a different style. Although Pantoja is going for the finish most of the time on the ground, if he doesn't get it, it can result in an underwhelming fight, and the fighters ahead of him just have a lower chance of having a lackluster fight in terms of entertainment. Next, I have Jack Della Maddalena. I like boxers, and this may be recency biased because of his recent fight with Bilal, but his style of fighting is one that I love to watch. So let me just name some potential cons. I think the Gilbert Burns fight might be the most talked about fight of his career, even more than his title fight. I guess depending on who his opponent is, that Gilbert Burns fight showed that there's potential for him to be held down and just get smudged. Obviously, he ended up winning that fight, and that's a credit to him. He knocked out Gilbert Burns, but it is a concern that he got held down for that long. You're also not going to get much from him outside of the octagon. He's as dry as it gets, but that speaks to how fun his style is. The fact that he doesn't have to talk trash. He can talk trash, but usually it comes off very dry. We're just there for his fight style. He's got some of the best combos I've seen, and I think he's got a legit argument for being the best boxer in the UFC. Next, we got Dricus Du Plessis. Mr. Goofy, Mr. Herky Jerky himself. It's pretty obvious what makes Dricus entertaining. It's his unorthodox style and the fact that it was good enough for him to become champion. Almost every win leading up to his title win, it felt like we were saying, okay, cool, it's not going to work in his next fight. And it just continued to work. His durability is insane. There was moments in that Izzy fight where he looked insanely tired to me, but he would just have these short spurts of energy he would get and throw some of the most odd combinations. He obviously ended up tagging Izzy at one point and got the finish. His fight with Derek Brunson is one of the funniest fights to me. And I think he said it himself, that the reason why he's so entertaining is because he just fights. There's no reason for why he does some of the things he does, except he just feels like it. I'm not saying he doesn't game plan for his opponents, but it feels like he doesn't think much once he's in the cage. He just fights. He also has the finishing power that I value so much. His power and chin is obviously what allows him to fight the way that he does. It's easy to say that this fighter looks more technical than Dricus, though he beats him. But sometimes I think people forget that it's a fight. When the guy feels like he's impossible to finish, his style is so awkward that it's hard to get a read on him. He can mix in the wrestling with this weird striking, and he has the power in his hands to rock you. Sometimes all that technical stuff goes out the window because Dricus will just turn it into a street fight. Moving on, we got Alexandre Volkanovski, who is one of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC. Now, he doesn't have something that I value very highly, which is good finishing potential, but he has everything else to make up for that. He has insanely high output, and he's very well rounded. You can't smudge Volk and make it a boring fight. It's impossible to do that to him. And how entertaining Volk really is, I think was shown in his last fight. I was terrified for his chin. I know Diego Lopez has power, and I was fairly certain that Volk was about to get chinned for the third fight in the row. But after having been knocked out brutally in his last two fights, he was still willing to trade with Lopez in the pocket. If you want a combination of one of the most skilled fighters, combined with heart and determination, then this is your guy. That submission attempt he escaped in the Ortega fight is one of the greatest moments in UFC history. Getting dropped by Chad Mendes and then coming back to knock him out. His first fight with Islam was one of the best fights ever. He doesn't necessarily turn these fights into a brawl, but he's so skilled and he has so much heart that they become entertaining. All of those fights showcased his abilities as a fighter, but also his ability to dig deep. There are insanely skilled fighters that just don't have that dog in him. Leon Edwards isn't a catch a stray here, but if Leon had some more dog in him, combine that with the skills he already has, he would be a much more entertaining fighter. Now, if you are a Volk fan, prepare to have anxiety for 25 minutes, but that's what makes him so entertaining. My second most entertaining fighter is Tom Aspinall. Now, this depends on what you value. The thing with Tom Aspinall fights is that they can be very anticlimactic. You settle down, and you're ready to watch him fight, just for him to never even make it out of the first round and just finish the fight. Of course, every fan wants the fight to end in a finish, but only after there's been a bit of a back and forth, ideally a third or fourth round finish. But I highly value a fighter who is able to do this. Another thing actually I just remembered that works against him, for some people, in some people's minds, is how trash the heavyweight division is. We feel that shouldn't change how entertaining a fighter is, but when fans think so low of his opponents, it almost takes away from the fight and the finish. It's also a bit like the young Mike Tyson effect. I've heard that fans would ask for their money back because Tyson would end the fight so quickly. But that's what you're paying for when you watch a Tyson fight. And that's exactly what you're paying for in an Aspinall fight. You're not going to get a war. You will get complete domination. And for a fighter to do that at the highest level, although like I said, it's the worst division in the UFC, it's still one of the most impressive things to me. Now, the most entertaining fighter in the UFC, without question to me, is Ilia Topuria. And it's not even close. He does not have a boring fight. It's as simple as that. He's also proven that he doesn't need to get a finish to be involved in an entertaining fight. His fight with Josh Emmett went all 5 rounds and it was just a brutal beating of Emmett. Even his debut against Zalal on short notice was fine. And listen, Zalal's been involved in some stinkers, and Topuria was able to get an entertaining fight out of him. His other fight, where he was almost finished against Jai Herbert, didn't discourage him from going for the finish either. I think you see some fighters take a shot like that, and it will change how they fight for the rest of the match. Even if they recover, it's hard to mentally get back into that mode after you've almost been slept, but he still made the fight entertaining after that. And all his finishes, you guys have seen before. Knocking out Ryan Hall, submitting Bryce Mitchell, and then a 3-knockout win streak of Volkanovski, Holloway, and Charles Oliveira. I'm also very confident in saying that he will never be involved in a boring fight. That's just his style. I think when guys have power like Ilia, it's easy for them to have a completely different style of fighting, but he chases that finish. There's also a situation like, to be another stray here, like Adesanya, and I like Adesanya, but I'm going to use him as an example. During his title reign, it became pretty obvious that whether he was involved in an entertaining fight depended on his opponent. The fight will be entertaining if you play into his game. That's not the case with Topuria. He will chase you to finish that fight. He said it himself before the Oliveira fight. He said that he would knock out Oliveira in round number 1 because Oliveira's the one that comes forward. He said it usually takes him a couple rounds because he's the one that has to close the distance and get that finish. Whether a Topuria fight is entertaining depends solely on him. It also does not matter the style of his opponent, as he's so well-rounded himself. He can strike with anybody and will willingly strike with anybody. And since his grappling is so good, you can't just dominate him on the ground and keep him there. You can't do to Topuria what Batista did to Aldo, right? The fact that the most entertaining champion also happens to be such a great, well-rounded fighter just makes that much more impressive to me. This is somebody going out there knowing they're more skilled than their opponent. This may be the best fighter to show somebody who has a negative view of MMA. They will see the obvious skill combined with the entertaining style. The perception of many MMA fighters, especially their boxing, is that it's sloppy and not top level. And let's be honest, many UFC fighters support that claim. But with Topuria, you will see elite skills in every aspect of MMA, and the fight will most likely end with him taking his opponent's head off. That's just the truth. So these were my most entertaining champions ranked. Let me know what you would change about this list. Until next time, peace.